Growing up in the United States, I'm no stranger to flags on the front of houses and patriotic songs. Having been born just in time to experience the post-9/11 fervor, we recited the Pledge of Allegiance in school and heard about the freedoms that we are afforded in this country ad nauseum. As everyone gets older and hits their teenage years, any pride or reverence for the country itself can wane. Whether this is warranted or not, I'm not here to say. By the time my generation became adults, a large portion of us were jaded, which is one of the contributing factors to the current state of division in the nation. Even those who have nationalist sympathies share in the feelings that America has, at best, lost its luster. One of the claims made by those who feel that it's broken beyond repair is that America has no culture or spirit. I've seen this parroted by people on both sides of the political aisle for different reasons. Some use the claim to denigrate the country, with their overall goal being to tear it down and rebuild it in the way they wish. Others use it as a means to separate themselves from the bizarre, faux pride that the baby boomer generation seems to have settled into after they got done spitting in the faces of Vietnam veterans. As a man who's always been proud to be an American, warts and all, I never truly gave this topic any thought until I started dating my wife. She comes from Brazil. I never thought I would marry a foreigner, let alone someone who wasn't white, but here I am, and it's been interesting learning about her culture from her. As I learn about that culture, I've inadvertently been learning about mine. The culture shock I experience when she informs me of some of the differences wouldn't exist if I was not different from her on some level. For instance, did you know that Brazilians don't really eat dinner? Lunch is their main meal of the day. They have small items for breakfast and dinner, and then have a big lunch. This is something my wife and other people had to get used to when they got here, since lunch here is usually something small, like a sandwich. Another difference is in the mindset Brazilians tend to have compared to Americans. Brazil is known for many things, perhaps the most famous being soccer and parties. The record for World Cup wins they've built is impressive even to people who don't like soccer, and Carnival is renowned worldwide for the upbeat party environment and beautiful women. The mindset that birthed these things was a laid-back one, in which taking it easy and having a good time are higher up on the list of priorities. My wife and I were discussing geopolitics one day, and I mentioned that their president made a statement that was overall a good thing, but that a lot of Brazilians were upset about. She told me people were upset at him because they didn't want problems on the world stage. The Brazilian population wouldn't want anything serious to get in the way of their parties. When she mentioned this, a lot of things started to make sense to me. As an American, I've been used to learning about random places I never knew about, caring about them for between 6 months and 20 years, and then moving on. We tend to end up embroiled in random events whether we want them or not. This is true of our entire history, for better or for worse. I'm not saying that Brazilians don't work hard. However, they prioritize rest and relaxation far more than Americans do. Say what you want about the work culture in America, but we work circles around everyone in this hemisphere and most others in the East. Many in the country have been conditioned to believe that these aspects of Americanism are only bad, and while I don't deny the downsides, to deny the positives of America and the negatives of the Brazilian mindset is insanity. Brazil is full of slums where people who can't or don't want to find jobs live for free and siphon electricity and other resources illegally, and America is the most prosperous and advanced nation in history by light years. So why are we like that? What is the mindset and spirit that birthed these things? In order to find out, one must look to the founding and early years of the nation. When the 13 colonies declared independence from England, revolution and rebellion was not known as a winning move. To look at most civilian uprisings in history is to see slaughter. They're generally not successful, and especially not against whatever the dominant power of the time is. And yet, a scrappy group of farmers organized into regular and militia regiments were successful in cornering the world's most well-trained and effective army, supported by the greatest naval force at the time. When that force returned less than 50 years later in 1812, the sons of those men fought the British again to a stalemate, which cemented the US as a sovereign nation that the world had to at least take seriously. From this second war came our national anthem, an excerpt from a poem written by Francis Scott Key after what he witnessed during the battle for Fort McHenry. The US was not meant to win that battle. All who looked on did not expect to see the stars and stripes floating over the fort, and yet the flag remained firm. And these wars and battles are not a rarity in American history either. From Bunker Hill to D-Day to Chosin and more, the American spirit is hard-nosed and unwilling to quit. When our backs are against the wall, we move forward into the danger, and when the other man is more talented or better equipped than us, we will outwork him. This is not just in war, but in many categories. The industrial capabilities of the US were one of the main factors that contributed to its growth into a superpower. And our ability to consistently be at the top of the world in athletics is nothing short of miraculous. Countries like China and the USSR were known for taking children away from their families at young ages to train them into super athletes. Steroids and world-class training for 6 to 8 hours a day from the age of 7 because a child showed a penchant for wrestling. Meanwhile, kids who lift hay bales in the Midwest are funding their own training to hopefully make the Olympic team after college. It's essentially a man or woman versus a former Eastern Bloc government. For decades, there have been both long and short-term events that have taken place which have shaken the faith many Americans have in the nation. Whether justified or not, people question the legitimacy of many facets of American life we once held dear. They may even outright deny the existence of these aspects that have made the nation prosperous, instead substituting in their own theories and explanations. These issues are not from flaws within the American spirit, but from the taking of it for granted or even the total abandonment of it. War is not heroic anymore because we worked so hard to be good at it while most other nations did not. Jobs are harder to come by because instead of taking pride in work ethic above talent or technology, many bigwigs pride themselves in their bottom line above all. With the events that have taken place since the Vietnam War, it can be easy to forget what the heart of America truly is. There's been turmoil and strife in many ways, and I believe it is a fair assessment to say that the nation is not what it once was. But if there ever was a country to slip and fall but get back up after and keep moving forward, it would be the United States.